Hi everyone, welcome. So I have my top 5 tips before you get started. You're about to dive into all of the curriculum, but I want to make sure that you have a couple things that are kind of in your mindset just before you get started. My number 1 tip is stick to the steps. These steps are laid out to basically build on one another so that you can alleviate or at least minimize and reduce any kind of anxiety or stress without having to backtrack and redo things. So really, my first tip is stick to the steps. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is don't buy anything. Don't buy anything. Don't buy beds, collars, bowls, treats, office decor. Don't buy furniture for your office yet. Don't buy any kind of adorable toy or signage that you might see. The business itself will probably evolve, and it should evolve from your very first kind of concept all the way to the finished product. And what I've seen before, and what I did also as a mistake when I first started out, is to buy things that literally became useless later on. Also things that I just didn't need. So my tip number 2 is don't buy anything yet. You'll be swayed by cute office decor or things you think, oh, this would be great in my daycare or my boarding facility, that you may not ultimately need or use, especially if you choose to do another pet business. So if you choose to you start with one concept and you choose to do another concept, we don't want you wasting your money. So that's my tip number 2. Don't buy anything yet. Tip number 3 is, this is a big one. Try to find your local American Red Cross location that will have a pet first aid CPR course. This was wonderful when I first started. I definitely invested in it. It's about $50 to $60 depending upon where you are. It's usually one day between 3 to 5 hours. I think my class was about 3 hours long. They give you a CPR book and they basically go through all of the worst case scenarios that you could come up with or have happen when working with a pet. At the location that I went to actually was at a vet, so I was able to actually ask a lot of pertinent vet medical type questions. So come prepared with any questions or curiosities that you may have. But this was a wonderful investment. It's very, very minimal in cost. And the biggest thing it's going to do for you is, even though you may have had pets your whole life and a variety of animals, you've probably never really worked with other people's animals. And that is a disconnect. So having the confidence behind you, knowing what to do if an animal is injured or is ill, is going to be crucial in making sure that you are confident in your business and being able to tell people and show that little certification card that you'll receive from them saying I am canine or animal or certified with the American Red Cross and the pet CPR and first aid. It just puts another element of credibility to you as a professional and to your business. So definitely that is my third tip, is to go ahead and find your local American Red Cross and get that class set up. And they have them usually every quarter, so you should be able to find one at least close to when you want to start doing your business. Tip number 4 is keep an open mind. So this goes back to not buying anything yet. Realistically, the modules 1, 2, and 3 will definitely put you on a journey and a path of exploratory learning. You want to keep an open mind during this situation and during the training, because I cannot tell you how often people start with one concept and then ultimately it snowballs into something totally different. And it's not that the concept was bad to begin with, it's just that they discovered that their interests are just slightly different from what they initially thought. For instance, I even started my business as a pet boutique. I had pet photography, I also had treats and quite a bit of inventory. And I realized literally in my first year, I hate working with inventory. I don't like ordering 2 seasons ahead of time. I don't like having every size available. I didn't like working, no offense, but I didn't enjoy working with any of the actual outfitter type companies and having to buy all of the wholesale business. I had both wholesale items that I would purchase that were tax-free, and the tax would then go on to the customer. And I also had some people who would make things, and we would have a commission base where I didn't have to pay anything up front, but when the item sold, we split the proceeds. And I just really did enjoy the whole process. So I phased that out pretty early on, realizing that it wasn't really the best niche for me. And then I started doing daycare and boarding. And all of a sudden, not only did my business boom because I was more excited and enthusiastic, it also just was a better fit. And so if I did not have an open mind and keep a business mindset and realize, gosh, this is what I invested heavily in my initial phase of my business. And to my biggest regret, didn't really need any of that stuff because all I needed was literally to go ahead and do daycare. I didn't need inventory at all. So keep an open mind. That is tip number 4. And tip number 5 is if you are starting this as a side hustle, definitely make sure that you stick with your current profession for at least about 6 months before, as you're doing the training process, before you jump into the business. I have seen people kind of anxiously just want to get everything started, and I think that's fantastic, but I really want to make sure that you, still have an income coming in so you can get the business started the right way. Or B, have a savings account, usually 6 to 10 months of savings for your major expenses. You can start reducing expenses if you plan on quitting your day job, or if you're retiring and you don't have a pension coming in just yet. Make sure that you have 6 to 10 months of active expenses ready to go, just to kind of keep you cushioned while you're getting your business going. And it's going to depend on the season. So if you're doing this starting in December or January, and you're just getting everything started, 6 months will bring you right into the summer, which is a great time to be getting business. However, if you're going to be starting this in, let's say, August or September, right at the end of summer, right at the end of like a lot of, the vast majority of travel peaking season, then you might be trying to get business in the heart of December or January, February, which is just not as well traveled. That doesn't mean that people don't travel, but it does mean that you're gonna wanna build that book of business so you have all of your months booked out. And so while you were in the initiation phase of this, while you are getting everything ready and getting everything in its planning phase and putting it into execution phase, you really wanna make sure that you have either the income that's coming in from your existing job or 6 to about 10 months of savings. So, and that's going to be based on your geographical location, whatever your major expenses are, that kind of thing. So again, just to revise. Number 1, stick to the steps. They do build on each other. Number 2, don't buy anything yet. Wait until you get to that part of the course. Number 3, enroll in the Red Cross course, which is the Animal CPR and First Aid class. It's around $50 to $60. It should be a fairly local location that you should be able to easily access, and it's really worth it. Tip number 4 is keep an open mind, because you may not start with this, you may not finish with the same business that you started with conceptually. And tip number 5 is have about 6 to 10 months worth of savings. When I first started, I literally had about a year's worth of savings for my expenses. My spouse, of course, was working full time at that time as well, so he was able to chip in with expenses as well. But just to make sure that you are, still living comfortably while you are getting everything started. Now, if you are not working and you're going to be starting this as a side business and your expenses are already taken care of, that's totally fine. It's a moot point at that point. But just make sure that you will have some initial startup costs, and I'll see you in the next chapter. All right.